So now let's talk about what happens with labor supply in recessions. And what happens if one spouse is working and the other? So let's say the husband is working and the wife is a stay-at-home parent. Or the wife is working and the husband's a stay-at-home parent. Either way. So during a recession, let's say that the spouse who's working, let's just say for say the husband is working and the wife is working or is doing household production, raising the children, doing the household chores around the house. So what happens if the husband becomes unemployed? Well, if the husband becomes unemployed, then that husband's market productivity is going to decline. So because he's not working, right, his productivity in the workplace, his productivity in bringing home the money is going to go down. And so when that's happened, he's going to be more likely to engage in household production, do more around the house. Now, if his wife could still earn money, then it may be beneficial for the wife to work while the husband stays home. So there's something happened in a recession that caused the husband to lose his job. And so the husband's at home, unable to find work, but maybe the wife can work. And so she will enter the labor force and attempt to work. Now, if the husband stays in this scenario, if the husband stays unemployed, and remember, to be unemployed, you have to be not working, but for the most part, actively looking, then with the wife entering, you're going to increase that labor force by one person. And so when that happens, as long as the husband stays in the labor force, with the wife going in, that spouse will be increasing the labor force participation rate. Okay. Now, this is known as the added worker effect. All right, so the added worker effect is when one spouse enters the labor force during a recession because the other becomes unemployed. And so by that happening, the labor participation rate is going to go up. All right. There is, however, another way to look at it. And so this is by looking at expectations. So let me take this off here for a second. Okay. And here we are. All right. So if we look at expectations, so let's look at your expected wage. Okay, so at any given time, you have some expectation about what you will make. Okay, and so you have some expectation on your wage. Now, that is going to be vary, but if you're working, you expect that to be whatever it is, so whatever you're making. But if you're unemployed, it could be a little bit different. So EW is your expected wage. Now that's going to equal whatever wage you would make if you were working times, we'll use pi here, which is the probability of finding work. Okay. So if you expect to make, so if you're going to make $10 an hour, and you are going to, and you think you have a 50% chance of finding a job, right? So your expectation, your expected value is that you'll make $5 an hour. Okay. So during a recession, this falls. Your expected wage is going to fall, and there's two reasons. During a recession, there tends to be a decrease in demand, and so if we look at our labor demand and our labor supply, because of mostly the scale effect, what you're going to see is you're going to see a decrease in a labor demand. And what happens is that as we adjust, the wages are going to fall. So during recessions, wages are going to go down. All right. So now, as wages go down, the expected wage is going to go down as well. The other thing is that during a recession, the chances of finding a new job is also going to fall. And so during recession, that's going to decrease as well. So what tends to happen is that there tends to be a substitution effect from that. And workers may drop out of the labor force because spending time at home may be more valuable up to them than the expected wage from searching. And so if there's a 10% chance of finding work and the wage is going down because it's a poor labor market, then their expected wage isn't going to be very high. Okay, what they expect to make if they go out and search. And so for those workers, it may just be worth it for them to stay at home and do some household production. And this is known as the discouraged worker effect. Let me get this here. So what you have here is during recessions, you have two different effects. You have the added worker effect, which is causing the labor force participation rate to increase because the other spouse may enter the workforce. But then you have the discouraged worker effect, which may cause the workers who were laid off to exit the workforce. So which effect dominates? Well, both effects work against each other. Again, the added worker increases the labor force participation rate, the discouraged worker decreases it. Knowing which dominates is needed to make inferences about the unemployment rate. Is it good? Is it bad? How good or bad is it? So normally, this discouraged worker effect tends to dominate. And so the labor force, for the most part, tends to decline during recessions and grow during economic expansions. Now, the discouraged worker effect does create something called hidden unemployment. And these are people who would like to work, but believe their jobs are so scarce that looking for work has no value to them. So you might say, all right, well, why is that bad? Well, it's bad because it doesn't present a good, accurate representation of the unemployment rate. Now, with the BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, who puts out the unemployment rate, they have different measures of it. And one of the measures does actually factor in that hidden unemployment. But what you likely hear, the unemployment rate that you see, which is U3, the definition of it, does not include that. And so that official rate does not include it. And so you may see where job growth is really slow or declining, and the labor force participation rate may actually be increasing. Or it may be the case where jobs are being added and the labor force participation rate is decreasing. And so again, there's a lot that goes on within this, but it gives you a good overview of how this all works.